Because events are deadline driven, something is bound to go wrong. This is why it's important to introduce robustness into your event planning and team and execution strategies. And recently, I read a few research publications that inspired this video. And in those papers, they were talking about quality robustness, your ability to stay on your goals, and the solution robustness, your ability to stay on your timeline. And while studying these, I also realized that one thing that I've been passionate about for my 20 years of running events is stakeholder robustness. And that is your ability to stay on your core values while communicating with your team, your customers, your external service providers, while something stressful is happening. In this video, I want to share some insights of each of these topics with you. The first thing I want to talk about is content flexibility. And that is the ability of you and your talents or speakers to be able to adjust the content in order to adapt to the new situation. For example, 2 years ago, I was in Stuttgart for a conference, and they had a setup that was intended for 200 plus participants. But as the session I went to was one of the last ones of the weekend, there were only a handful of people there. So it really created an awkward moment where you had somebody on stage talking to a large room with a bunch of seats, and everybody was distributed with major distances on these seats. So it created this awkward moment where it felt like nobody really liked the session, but the presentation was really good. So if the organizers had been a little bit better and quick thinking about adapting to the new situation, or even anticipate that the last sessions will be emptier, they could have turned that into like a bonfire huddle session where everybody comes closer. The speaker wouldn't even use a microphone to really avoid this entity that's creating a distance between them, and create a much more intimate setup that could make an awkward moment rather be very, very enjoyable and personal. So the bond between the speaker and the audience could have been tighter. Maybe even the speaker slightly adjust the presentation into something that is more suitable for that situation. So the better you are with adapting your delivery and the content to the situation, the more robust you can be in your ability to still let the participant leave with a great experience. I know this from teaching dance classes, for example, where it really makes a big difference how you deliver to a large crowd compared to a small crowd, or if the room is jam-packed versus you have a lot of space in the room. So you need to be quick thinking in order to adapt to the situation at hand so that you get the best experience out of that current active situation you're in. The next thing is to have multiple baseline schedules. This is the ability to have different ways of fulfilling a promise. So ahead of time, you're already planned, for example, different types of entertainment for a certain time slot that you have as a backup solution, or that you react based on the number of subscriptions you get from one time at a certain time point of the event. So if it looks like it's going to be a jam-packed event, you might change direction and provide another solution. If it looks like it's going to be more intimate, then you change the concept of the event. And also things like, if you know that a certain region is prone to strikes or political unease, you might need to have alternative, for example, travel plans. Let's say France loves to have strikes. So if somebody's coming from there, you might need to also have a backup plan of somebody driving from France to Germany, for example, if that's where you're going for, and being able to pick up the talents or the speakers to make it to your event. And these problems actually happen on a regular basis, or more often than not. So being able to have backup plans, contingency plans, is really helpful. And that's come to the main idea with contingency plans is to have if-then scenarios where, for example, you say, what happens during the check-in process if the equipment is out of order? Will you then try to be able to call in a bunch of volunteers that do that job manually? Will you bring live music and maybe catering food to entertain people while their check-in process is massively slowed down? If the program is delayed, what do you do then? Do you have buffers set up in the program to be able to provide other alternatives? Also, if different equipment arrives late, do you have alternative ways of solving your challenges? And this is sort of basic contingency planning that you do for your events, at least for specific key moments of your event. You don't need to necessarily do this for every aspect of your event, but some of the key moments need to be there. Common one is if the stage is not set up, the welcome ceremony doesn't work. How do you gain a few hours to finish up the stage setup while people are waiting for the welcome ceremony? To have a backup plan for that is really valuable. Next, we have solution robustness. This is your ability to stick with your timelines as the event progresses, or even as a lead up to the event. And one of the ways you can help yourself stick to timelines is to introduce what's called a float factor. Float factor basically means that you create a bigger range. Like a delivery can happen anytime between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Or you have, for example, talents, your speakers, your artists, when they need to be prepared for the stage, you can give them a little bit of broader window of when they should be getting ready backstage, and then a more narrow window when they should actually be ready to walk in on stage. Buffer activities. Buffer activities are activities that can shorten or extend it to realign your schedule. And this is important for the fact that you need to prep the people involved in these activities. So if you have artists or speakers who gets one of these slots, they need to be ready to deliver a short set or medium set or a long set, and have 3 different things prepared in order to deliver something that helps you stay on your timeline. Of course, these are special sort of partners that you bring there. So you want to really be clear about the communication with them, but also make it really valuable for them to be such partners with you and really take care of them, both financially, but also through other opportunities that you create for them, so that everybody's aligned, everybody knows what the goal is, and everybody benefits from that goal. And then also, for example, for breakable sensitive equipment, for example, that you introduce time and money buffers. So if equipment arrives defect, do you have time to reorder it? Do you have an ability to replace them quickly with something else? Or your posters are water damaged, can you do an express order? Do you already have those channels warmed up and ready for if that would be needed? The classic, the dog ate the flyers sort of solution, that you'll be able to react really quickly or on short notice to resolve that issue. And next we come to my favorite, which is the stakeholder robustness. That is your ability to maintain good relationship and a healthy relationship with your team, with your external service providers, with your guests and customers. And here is your ability to, for example, visualize deadlines and consequences, so that the communication with those people are very clear. Everybody understands what's going on. And ideally that you can actually show it to them. This is actually a screenshot from our software where we introduce all the schedules into the solution. So you build them right in there so that you can also give each stakeholder their subset of the schedule. And if anything changes anywhere, it is spread and updated everywhere automatically. But importantly, that you can also leave messages or notifications where people can understand, like, here are the deadlines that we need to keep track of. The last day of picking up decoration, for example, and what happens if we missed it. The last day of canceling a hotel room, for example, that you introduce all those schedules inside of your timeline so you can maintain them and work everything in one place. And that is one of the main concepts behind our software that we're trying to facilitate, so that these conversations are working better. The other thing is really understand the importance of nonviolent communication, so that when you're in a stressful moment, it doesn't give anybody a carte blanche to be able to be very rough in their communication just because they need to solve the thing quickly. Because now you already had an external stress factor, and because of the bad communication style, you're introducing also an internal stress factor. So now it's double the friction to get the job done. Sure, people might manage to do it, but the degree they burn out, or you're cashing in from the reservoir of your goodwill in that relationship, it can be so much that eventually that relationship breaks or can't handle any further negative experiences. So the better you are in handling your communication style, or the way I like to think about it, stay true to your core values even under stress, and core values in terms of how you think of yourself as a communicator, that you maintain that ability of communicating in that style that you want, even under pressure. That is the main thing. And this is something I worked a lot on. And I even wrote a book for the dance community. And I think the ideas also can be applied to any teamwork that is also for events. So if you just let me know in the comments that you want it, and I'll send it to you. It's a PDF with like 90 something pages. So I think it's a quick read, enjoyable, talks about those important nonviolent communication strategies under intense moments. You want to have clear roles, but you want to easily be able to break them at the same time. This is a little bit counterintuitive. But the importance is that it's obvious to everybody that you want that having a clear role makes it easier for people to know what is expected of them and the things they need to do. They have their schedule, they have their program, they understand all of that stuff. So that part is not counterintuitive. The counterintuitive part of that is that when those holy shit moments happen in events, you sometimes don't have the right person available to solve it, or even there was something you didn't have a person for. So it needs to be possible for you to tap into the existing pool of skills and people that you have in your team and ask somebody to step out of the role to deal with it. But the important aspect of this having clarity is that when you have clarity, you can also tap into your nonviolent communication and say, hey, I know your role was to do this, but I need somebody to doing this. Can you be that person? And the other person can opt in and take that job and go for it and have ownership of it, rather than randomly pushing people to jump in because you don't know, maybe there's something in their schedule that you didn't pay attention to that makes them not the right person to deal with that. So by introducing clarity in roles, it also allows you to better communicate when somebody is, and when you're asking somebody to step out of their role, and it's not just pushed onto people unexpectedly. And if you have a good team setup, this process is actually faster than when you use brute force to put people on different roles because of the internal friction that is also created and the lack of ownership that they're taking. The same thing goes when it comes to clarity of data boundaries or access to different resources, so that it's really clear to who's handling cash, who have access to car keys, and your ability to quickly add and remove people from these different resources, who needs access to specific guest information to solve something. If that person is not available, you need to be able to quickly give access to somebody else to be able to solve that problem, whether that they need to quickly get access to money, car keys, or keys to a certain room where the equipments are, or customer data that they need to do in order to help a customer with the registration or access to certain things. So you want to have these clarities, but you also want to have an ability to adapt to the current situation of the event. And if you manage to work with these things, if you manage to have a clear quality robustness or solution robustness or stakeholder robustness, a lot of things can go wrong in the event, but you still manage to deliver on your goals, on your timeline, and have everybody just working like a really well-oiled machine together. So I'm curious about you. Which one of these things spoke to you the most, or what would you add to this list? I would really love to know about it. And of course, if you subscribe to this video, you get notified when I'm going to do my next video on anti-fragile teams and events. And the difference between robust and anti-fragile is robustness is about your ability to handle stress and absorb that stress. But anti-fragile means you actually grow stronger from the stress. It's almost like you deliberately seek out these disorders because you know it's going to make you stronger. So that's going to be the next video. I hope I see you there.